everyone, it's the Vigilante. I'm going to be reacting to another Assassin's Creed Shadows spits on Japanese history. Yasuke rejected by media. Now we all know why Yasuke was rejected. It's because he's a black man, because people can't get over that fact. And this video is coming to you by Edimon TV. If you choose to check him out, I'll link him down below. Give him a shout out, let him know I sent you, give him the respect he deserves. Do not send any hate whatsoever. So let's get into the video.
We've now reached the part of Assassin's Creed Shadows controversy where the journalists are having praised the game and claiming it's some return to form for Assassin's Creed as a franchise, are now beginning to turn on the very things that they were white knighting. Let's start with this from the gamer. There is no good reason to play as Yasuke in Assassin's Creed Shadows. Yeah, you heard that right. The gamer of all people is already turning on Yasuke, and I have to agree with them here after my about 20 to maybe 25 hours of playtime that I've sunk into this game so far. Early on in this article, the writer, Jade King, says this: "Even if you have all the power in the world, it's difficult to care about characters or what they are going through if there isn't a struggle for the player to empathize with both narratively and mechanically. You can put me on a battlefield with the coolest weapons and abilities ever, but if this means I can mow down enemies without breaking a sweat, why should I care?" That's a defining problem with Yasuke in Assassin's Creed Shadows. But it's here with this paragraph that praises Naoe as a playable character, saying how you have to think about what you're actually doing when you play as her, how you can stealth around, who you should kill first, and so on, that makes her gameplay, at the very least, feel like an Assassin's Creed game.
I actually do agree with him a little bit on this part. Outside the certain side missions that he has, which I haven't even gotten into yet because I don't know where the hell they're at. And then also, I only use him really for the castle missions, because it just makes it so much easier. The game is so long, I want to hurry up and get through the side quests, because you have to play the side quests in order to get through the game. If you don't play the side quests, you're not going to be at a high enough level. That's how Ubisoft makes it, so you're forced to play this grindy side stuff. So using him for those side quests does make it easier, but they do have a point. So far that I have played this game, I've sunk about 15 hours into it. The story has not made you want to really play as him. It doesn't feel like he really belongs in there. The story is all built around the female shinobi so far. So maybe it'll change, but I don't know.
But it's then at the end of this paragraph where the gamer sinks the knife and admits that once Yasuke becomes fully playable, he ruins the game. And I agree. You see, until you unlock Yasuke, Shadows just kinda plays like a bog-standard Assassin's Creed game. Nothing really sticks out. The combat with Naoe, especially early on, is just frustratingly bare bones, because you don't have enough points to really unlock more interesting moves. Her entire style is of course stealth, and I will admit, as you progress her assassin tree, yeah, you can eventually make her hidden blade actually finally feel like how it's supposed to be like in previous games. You're going to routinely not be able to kill harder targets with an assassination, but once you upgrade it enough, you can then start actually killing even the harder enemies. Well, mostly. Even then, some still don't die instantly, which is, yes, very annoying. I played Naoe for the first 10 or so hours of the game, and while nothing was revolutionary about it, at the very least I was an assassin doing assassiny things in my Ass Creed game. Then came Yasuke, where, oh god, I just gotta explain this to you guys. So, the entire way that Yasuke and Naoe team up and everything is a perfect example of how poor the writing is in this game, and I need to explain it to you with how it actually plays out in-game. So,
I actually do agree with them that the way that they sit there and made it to where they team up made absolutely no sense. It was stupid, and it's just a poor example of horrible writing. But Ubisoft hasn't done a compelling writing since maybe Origins. I think Assassin's Creed Origins was the last game they did. Odyssey, horrible writing. Valhalla, horrible writing. Star Wars Outlaws, horrible writing. Avatar, horrible writing. And so far this one. Now I have been told after you get about the last 10 hours, I think, of the story, the writing gets really good. So I am trying to hold out hope for that one. But it is true. Like, she actually does feel like she belongs in this Assassin's Creed game. And he honestly feels like he belongs more in the Origins, the Odyssey, and the Valhalla games. Because them three, the only reason why they slapped the Assassin's Creed name on them was because Assassin's Creed is such a huge IP, it was going to garner money no matter what. They could have removed that Assassin's Creed and you honestly wouldn't really know that it was part of the Assassin's Creed lore. They just didn't want to create their own IP, that's why. Or a whole new IP.
Naoe gets a message to meet Akechi Mitsuhide. He's the general of Oda Nobunaga. That's the guy who bought Yasuke in the beginning of the game. So in real life, and this isn't a spoiler or anything, this actually happened, Akechi Mitsuhide betrays Oda Nobunaga and turns his own forces against him. So this all really happened, and then it led to the fall of Oda and his empire. And if history is to be believed, once Akechi did this, He took Yasuke, who briefly knew Oda at this point, and gave him back to the Jesuits, and Yasuke was never heard from again in history. Of course, instead here, Yasuke is the legendary Black Samurai. Please clap for him, which let me explain that too now. So, when the game opens, Yasuke gets bought by Oda Nobunaga from the Portuguese. What's wild, however, is that the game then fast forwards to its first combat mission as Yasuke decked out in his full gear and weapons, and I'm not kidding you, a mere 6 months after meeting Oda Nobunaga and reaching Japan. So the Yasuke that you play in this game with his ability to overcome his enemies, kill any other samurai or ninja and whatnot, he has only been training with the katana and naginata and so on for half a year at this point. Yeah, I know, it's as ridiculous as it sounds, but fast forwarding to Akechi Mitsuhide betraying Oda Nobunaga, Naoe ends up meeting with Akechi, and he lies to her by saying that Oda Nobunaga was the head of those evil shinobi that killed her dad in the opening of the game. He even then shows her the mask to prove it. And it's so obvious that this mask doesn't belong to Oda, but likely to Akechi, or someone that he knows that he's working with instead. But since the writers thinks we're all idiots and the betrayal here is so painfully obvious...
He is partially true about the whole writing thing. Now, they could have sat there and made it seem like it was more, but the thing is, it never shows in the actual game if he bought the slave. He told them that if you leave him there, he might have sat there and released him, and the black guy could have left as much as he wanted to. It doesn't really explain anything, so you don't even know if he was that guy's slave in the first place. That's just pure speculation on your part. And then, you don't know what happens to him in real life, just like you said. That's why they picked him. Honestly, it was a good choice because he was an open-ended character. You couldn't really screw up history like that by using him. And guess what? You're sitting there throwing a fit about the whole historical accuracy. You do realize that there was no Assassin's Creed Order. You do realize that the whole point of the Assassin's Creed game, the Assassin's Creed Order, even though there were a Templar, guess what? They sat there and twisted the historical version of the Templars. You do realize that, but you don't care about that part, do you?
The player that the fact that Naoe, a shinobi, who has been trained from birth to assassinate her targets and find information on people, like that's all she knows. She just ends up accepting Akechi's claims as truth. This level of piss-poor writing, it's all over Shadows, and honestly, it's one of the game's biggest problems for me the more I play it, which is that the writers of Shadows are actually god-awful at their jobs when comparing the level of writing here if you compare it to, say, Black Flag. Assassin's Creed 2, or hell, if you want to be more current and fair, I guess, even Valhalla somehow has better writing if you can believe it. Everyone in this game just kind of comes off as dumbasses, really, and they oftentimes don't sound like they exist in the time period that they're living in. Anyways, Naoe agrees to assassinate Oda Nobunaga, believing that he was responsible for killing her dad. So you stealth into the castle, taking people out and whatnot, and eventually you arrive at Oda Nobunaga's chambers. Naoe then plays the ocarina instrument thing that her dad played to tell Oda that she's in the room with him, which is stupid, because first, you're an assassin. Why are you giving your position away? And secondly, Oda is an accomplished swordsman. This is just putting yourself in needless danger. Again, like I said, piss poor writing. Anyway, you fight Oda Nobunaga, you win because girl power, and Naoe then accuses Oda of killing her dad and destroying her clan. Oda tells her he knows nothing about this shadowy ninja group she speaks of and realizes in that moment that Akechi Mitsuhide has double-crossed them both in order to overtake his empire. Wow, who could have saw that coming? Yasuke then arrives out of nowhere, nobody can hear him even though he's like 6'7" or whatever, but anyway, he fights Naoe and realizes that she has a hidden blade on her arm. How does he know what a hidden blade is? I'll get to that in a second because that's another really stupid moment, but anyway, firstly, how history then, proceeds how it does in real life.
Dude, the Assassin's Creed isn't real life. There was no actual Assassin's Creed Order that we know of. You're sitting here complaining about, that, okay, I understand that the writing is very bad. It is very true. That whole sequence, completely correct. Now, he isn't correct about the girl boss thing because this game, I do not sit there and say just because there's a female lead does not make it a girl boss. It actually fits with the story, with her being there. There's nothing wrong with us actually playing as this female shinobi. That actually fits in the story. I do agree that so far, he does not fit inside the story. That is actually true, but that's because, like you're saying, Ubisoft's poor writing. But you are whining and crying about the whole historical accuracy when this is a video game, my guy. It is not meant to be historically accurate, okay? There was no Assassin's Creed Order. This shinobi woman never existed. You look at all the other protagonists we played, they were made up characters. They never existed in real life. So are you going to complain that they don't belong in the game because they're not historically accurate?
Oda pulls out his knife, commits seppuku to retain his honor, and then Yasuke is chosen to be his second and cuts him down. Which is ridiculous because usually whoever cuts you down during this ritual is your most trusted ally. Again, Oda has only known Yasuke for 6 months at this point. But what can you do? Bad writing, Oda dies, Yasuke and Naoe escape, and Akechi Mitsuhide takes over his empire. Dun 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 dun, let's keep going. Naoe is all sad saying, how could she be bamboozled? by this guy who was so obviously using her, but I guess the plot needed to happen. We then get to play as Yasuke finally, since the beginning of the game, where he then cuts down multiple samurai and other soldiers to make his way to Naue. How does he know exactly where Naue is? Because the plot needs to happen. So this guy, who's been using a katana for less time than it takes someone to become a plumber in real life, just mercilessly cuts down everyone, as if he's just been handling a katana for years at this point. They all die, and like thegamer.com says, Yasuke ruins the game, and I agree. Because while you play as Yasuke, you're suddenly no longer in an Assassin's Creed game. You feel like you're playing some kind of bog standard action game at the best of times. Gone are the hidden blades, the stealth, all the things that the franchise is known for. I mean, for God's sakes, you can't even climb trees in this game like you could in previous games. Here's a clip from Nick Tech showing just that. Anyway,
my guy, you're complaining that he doesn't feel like he belongs in Assassin's Creed, which I agree. He doesn't really belong in the whole Assassin's Creed world that I know of. I haven't seen what the story is. He doesn't feel like an assassin. That's very true. But guess what? Neither did Valhalla. Neither did Odyssey. Neither did Origins. If you would have took away the Assassin's Creed Origin part and labeled it as something else, you would have never even known it was part of the Assassin's Creed. You had to wait until DLC came out to see how it tied to the Assassin's Creed lore. Same thing with Odyssey, and I guarantee you, I never played Valhalla, but it's probably the same thing. So you just went through 3 other games, which you probably have played. If I go back, it probably shows that you might have even enjoyed the games. I don't know. I haven't watched your stuff long enough to know that, but you're going to sit there and complain that it doesn't feel like it, which I agree it does. But the female Shinobi, it does feel like an Assassin's Creed game. Outside of Mirage, this one actually feels like an actual Assassin's Creed game compared to Valhalla, Origins, and Odyssey. But unfortunately, Ubisoft couldn't make up their mind. They wanted to appease both fans of the series, so they gave us both of these characters. Was it a miss? Absolutely. I think that they could have done this way better. They could have sat there. They definitely should have sat there and did it to where it would have fit better, but they didn't. They chose to give us horrible writing, which is, you know what? That's just Ubisoft for you. But that's how video games have been nowadays, unfortunately. I don't agree with it, but you're sitting here throwing it in there about the whole historical accuracy part, which come on, my guy, this is an Assassin's Creed game. It's never meant to be historically accurate. Well, that's it for my reaction. Let me know down in the comments if you agree with me or not. Please like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, stay vigilant.